Hello and welcome. It is March. Can you believe it? We are into March 2025. I actually cannot believe how fast this year's gone and this winter. It feels like yesterday that we were talking about going into winter and now we're talking about going into spring. So it's really, really exciting. So what have I got today? I've got my cup of tea, which you need when you're doing any gardening jobs. And I've got a seed tray full of compost with perlite in it. I've got all my seeds and I've got some other things that I wanted to talk about as well. Just some things I'm going to be potting on this month, but it's very exciting times because we're getting to that stage where we can sow a little bit more and we can really think about what we want to be growing in our gardens this year. So I've got a few seeds that I'm going to be starting off today in this one cell tray. So the way that I start my seeds, I've got a chopstick in my hand, which helps me do a little hole to put the seed in. So that's why I'm waving around a chopstick. But what I tend to do when it's this early on, because we're still only in the beginning of March right now, it's not heating up that much, but we're getting there. So what we want to think about is where I'm going to be starting these. So I'm going to be starting these in my house. I'm going to be putting these on my windowsill. So I've only got one windowsill that I want to be using for this. So this is perfect for me. So what I do is I start off each variety in one cell tray. And then I just prick them out in a couple of weeks, and that's when I can pot them on and grow them on in the greenhouse. And by that point, the weather will be heating up a bit more and they will thrive out there. At the moment, it's still a little bit too cold to be starting things off in my greenhouse. Peas will be absolutely fine to do that sort of thing. And there's some cool crops that will do absolutely fine. But some of the things I'm going to be sowing today will not be happy getting started out in the greenhouse at the moment. They won't get started at all, in fact. So let's get into it. So first of all, what have I got? Tomatoes. Let's get the exciting stuff out the way. I think tomatoes are exciting anyway. Let me know if you think that. So I've got San Marzano. Now also, to be really helpful, I haven't got hardly any plant tags. So what I'm going to be doing is just put in a little label on the outside. I only need these for the next couple of weeks. So let's start San Marzano in this corner here. So I'm going to put my San Marzanos here. So San Marzano are my favourite type of tomato. Anyone that watches my channel will know that I'm obsessed with San Marzano tomatoes. Absolutely obsessed with them. And that's basically the majority of the things I'm going to be growing this year, tomato-wise. I have got a few others I'm going to be starting, but the San Marzano tomatoes, they're absolutely amazing for freezing. They're amazing for sauces, but you can freeze them and they freeze really, really well. So I'm going to start some off, and you can start so many off in one cell tray. Use a tiny bit of compost and you can just prick them out when you need to. So I'm going to start quite a few in here because I'll prick them out as soon as they get a couple of leaves. I won't wait until they've got their true leaves. I'm putting quite a few in here, guys. Let's get them started. Let's get excited. And then I may even start some more off in the next couple of weeks, depending on how these go and how many I want. I might want some more, you never know. So San Marzano's done. Let's just get that compost covered over. I mean, my amazing tools I use, a chopstick, guys. What more do you need? So there you go. So the compost I've got as well, I have moistened. So it's nice and wet. I'm just going to flatten that down a bit. And what I will do, I will bottom water this again, and I will just put a little bit of vermiculite on top of this as well, just to help a little bit more. So San Marzano's done. My favourite type of tomato's done. What have we got next? Black Crimea. So these are a really big beefsteak sort of tomato. I really like these. I don't know anyone else that's ever grown these. Have you ever grown Black Crimea? I know there's so many varieties, isn't there? But I know there's a black crim, I believe, black crim, that is quite popular. I've never grown that actually, but the Black Crimea, love this one. Really, really big. And I think on each vine, this was the most I've got out of a beefsteak tomato. So some of them on a vine, you might only get a few actual tomatoes, whereas this one, I seem to get quite a few. Again, I'm going to sow these quite heavily because I'm going to be pricking them out. And I prick them out as soon as they get their leaves, their first leaves, not even their true leaves. So I do these quite closely and they're absolutely fine. I mean, I probably do too many because I end up giving them away and all sorts. So this variety, I always do really well with. I think I've done this for the last maybe 2 years. This must be the 3rd year that I've done these tomatoes. And again, they really are prolific for me. They really like it in the polytunnel, and they get really, really huge clusters of, what is it when you have it's not like on the vine, like you get a bunch of tomatoes. I don't know what it's called. Let me know if you know what it's called. But I always get quite a lot. So these are good for the salad type ones. So I'm trying this year to grow a variety of different tomatoes that are used for different things. So my San Marzano ones are my sauce ones. So they're the ones I'm going to use in sauces, and they're the ones that I'm going to be freezing. My black Crimea are my big beefsteak ones. And then I've got these cherry ones, which are just really good for salads and snacking as well. My children like snacking on cherry tomatoes. I don't know if anyone else's does. Go loads of them as well. And then my next one is orange cream. And I do these for the taste. These are absolutely delicious. They're so sweet. These are my favourite type of variety of tomato, actually, if I'm honest. And I've done these again. Probably the last 3 or 4 years I've done these. Maybe 4 years. This might be the 4th year that I've done them. They taste so good, and they're good in salads. And to be honest, I just snack on these. I absolutely love tomatoes. I'm like a big fan of tomatoes. As you can see, I am really sowing these really thickly. And I will just prick these out once they come up and pop them on. And by then, we should have some nicer, warmer weather. Things should really be warmed up by then, and I can pop them in my greenhouse. Okay, so I've got 4 types of tomatoes sown done. But before I go on, I just wanted to show you, a couple of weeks ago, I started some tiny Tim tomatoes, and I started them just in this pot. So again, I sowed these quite heavily as well. There's a few in there. I'm going to wait probably until I start pricking these ones out, but they'll probably have their true leaves by then as well. And then I will just grow them on at the same time in the greenhouse. So these ones, the tiny Tim ones, they only grow to a really small height. So I'm gonna grow these on my windowsill this year. It's a bit of a test. I've never actually grown tomatoes on my windowsill before, but that's what these are for. So I did these separately a couple of weeks ago, and I'll pot them on at the same time. Okay, so next exciting crop is cucumbers. I'm going to start my cucumbers off now because I want them to get as big as possible before I plant them out. So last year, my cucumbers were okay, but I don't think they had long enough to really get going in the polytunnel. We had a funny year last year, didn't we? It was just a weird, strange year. And what I really want to do is make sure they're quite big before they get planted out into my polytunnel, and I really want to try and grow them on. So I want to start them off as early as possible so they have a good chance of getting quite big, and then they've got longer in the polytunnel. So let's put a few of these in. Again, I'm doing them quite close together because I'm going to pot them on as soon as they get their first leaves. I'm going to prick these out and pot them on. And by then I'll have cleared out my greenhouse as well. Oh my goodness. That is my question of the day. Whose greenhouse or growing space is in a complete mess after winter? So I've got another type of cucumber here, which I'm going to be growing. So I'm going to put that on the side there. So the first type that I grow, this is from Wilkinson's, and it is just cucumber market more. And I think I grew these last year. Can't actually remember, but Wilkinson's has been closed for a while now, so I'm not sure how these seeds are going to do, which is why I'm going to sow some different ones as well. And this is Hocus. These ones are quite a short variety and they're quite fat, but they always do really well actually in my polytunnel. So let's hope that I get the same results this year. So again, I'm doing quite a few, and that is my 2 lots of cucumber sown. Now for my courgettes. This is a sad story. Last year, I did not have one courgette plant make it. I didn't have one courgette. I had, I don't know, I probably planted, I think I did 5 just normal bog standard courgette plants, and I bought some different ones as plug plants from the garden centre. They all got eaten. Then I think, because I always have spares, and I think I might have planted another 5 and then sowed another 5 at the same time. None of them made it. I didn't have one courgette last year. I'm so sad about it. And the year before, I had so many courgettes. I had so many marrows. Oh, love them. So this year, I'm doing them a little bit earlier than I normally would. And that's because I want to have a chance of, again, similar to the cucumbers, them getting quite big before I plant them out to give them a chance. And also, it gives me a chance to keep re-sowing them just in case. I'm crossing my fingers that these are going to be okay. So courgettes are going to go in this one. And I'm just going to put, again, I'm putting quite a few in. They're not going to get big enough to be fighting for any nutrients or anything before I prick them out. And let's just hope I get some good courgette plants this year. Put the label on before I forget. Some of the leaves are pretty obvious what they are. I think like tomatoes, I think pumpkins and cucumbers and things you can sort of see, but other things I actually can't tell. So I definitely do need to label them. That was the last of my saved courgette seeds as well. So I'm going to have to get some more of those just in case I need to re-sow them. So let's just pop those down as well. Next thing, basil. I'm going to sow some basil, ready for my polytunnel and my tomatoes. I've already sown quite a lot of herbs, the winter sowing method. So I've got milk jugs just outside my patio and they are absolutely full and they've all nearly germinated. I can't actually believe it, but they're looking really good out there. So I don't want to sow too many herbs because I have already started quite a lot off, but basil is one that I don't think you can have enough of, especially in the polytunnel, especially in the summer. I can't think of anything nicer than tomato and basil together. It's just such a combination. So there you go, I'm going to pop them in. I'm going to take these out now. I put them in because I could only find two. And I thought if I want to sow anything in the middle, I can use those, but they're a bit in the way now. So I'm going to take them out. I don't know if I'm going to need them actually. I don't know if I'm going to sow anything in the middle. Right, there's my basil. I'll put them back in there. And I usually just re-tape up these. I don't, sometimes if the packets are really bad, because I'm quite heavy-handed, I just put them in an envelope, but most of the time I just sellotape them back up. Okay, so now I'm going to sow some cabbages. And I have got greyhound cabbage. So this is, like I say, one of those envelopes that I've just put my seeds into. And I've actually taped that up as well. So you know what I'm like, anyone that watches me, I reuse, recycle, reuse, recycle. It should be my middle name. So greyhound cabbage. A few of these in. These seeds are quite small, so it's quite easy to really go over the top. So I'm going to try not to. I'm going to try to just sow a few into there. So that's my greyhound cabbage. Then I've got red drumhead cabbage. So these are the cabbages that we'll be sowing now, and these are the ones that we're going to be enjoying in winter. So these are like your winter cabbages. So the cabbages that people will be harvesting in springtime, so around now, sort of the next couple of months, or in the summer, they're the ones that were sown last year. So they take quite a while, don't they? So it's always best to get them started off early. And I think it's good to just get them in the ground and get them growing, and they just sit there quite happily. You forget about them, and then in the winter, gorgeous roast dinners with lovely cabbage to enjoy. And I think that's really important when you're starting your seeds off. It's really easy to get excited for the summer crops like your tomatoes and your courgettes and things like that you can only do in the summer. But actually, remember those cabbages and things that you can harvest in the winter as well, because you'll be really thankful that you started these off. So my next one's Offenheim. I've grown these for the last couple of years to mixed results, but I've still got some of the seeds left. So I'm going to go ahead and sow some, and then I think I'm going to put these outside somewhere at my allotment. I think what I'm going to try and do is get Vince to make some sort of brassica cage somewhere, a small one that I can grow some cabbages in through the summer and then harvest in the winter, because I tend to use my polytunnel for the other way round. So my polytunnel will have things in it like brassicas that I will be harvesting in spring, and that means my polytunnel is being used over the winter, and then in the summer it's got your tomatoes and things like that in. So it's just a case of balancing it out so that the plot is sort of being used to its capacity at all times. Okay, last thing I'm going to be sowing in this tray, but not the last thing I'm going to be sowing, I'll show you what I'm going to be doing in a second, is some rocket. So again, I've got some of this growing in my greenhouse, and I have started some in my winter sowing method as well, in my milk jugs. But what I'm going to do is start some more, because I think repeat sowings of things like rocket and lettuce, you can't go wrong, because it's always going to be on hand to plug any gaps, and I think it's just so handy to have. They're quite expensive to buy things like rocket as well. It's nice to have, and these will end up going, I think, in my new vegetable patch that I've got in my garden, which we should be finishing in the next month or so. So it's sort of half done, and I just really want to get that done, so watch this space for that. Okay, so that tray is now done. I'm just going to put some vermiculite over that, and that's going to go on my windowsill for the next couple of weeks. But I've got one more tray to sow, but it is actually only one thing I'm going to be sowing in here, and that is sweet peas. Luckily, these come with a label. I'm terrible. Some kind of gardener I am. I've got no labels. My greenhouse is a mess. There you go. So let's take the label off so I know what it is I've sown in here. Pop that in there. And then, I don't know how many I've got in here. I'll start off with one per cell, and then I can always double up. So I'm going to pop them on top, and then I'll push them down. But these I will actually put in my greenhouse. These will be absolutely fine to be started in the greenhouse and grow on. I might need to cover them because the mice in my greenhouse at the moment digging everything up. Okay, so they've all got one in, so now let's pop another one in. I won't prick these out now. I will just plant them as they are, so they can grow quite big in here, and then I will just plant them out. Some of these will go at the plot, some of these will go in my garden. So some of them I've got two. Again, I'll put some vermiculite over this. Little fact for you, I haven't actually got a sense of smell. I've never had one, so I don't get the joy of sweet peas, which everyone talks about. And I do grow a lot of the perennial sweet peas because they don't have a scent, so it doesn't really matter to me, and they're easy to grow because they come back each year. But I do like having cut flowers, so I am going to be starting off some normal sweet peas as well. So a few more things that I'm going to be going over that I'm going to be actually sowing down at the plot in the next couple of weeks throughout March is carrots. So I've got various varieties of carrots here that I'm going to be starting. In my polytunnel, I have got some raised containers that are made out of pallets, and I'm going to be sowing them into here. So I've got some various different varieties. Some I've tried before, some I haven't, but March is a really good time to get these started. What I'll probably do is start some in March, and then I'll probably start some again in April as well, and just have some repeat sowings so that hopefully I get a few different harvests of carrots throughout the season. I'm also going to be starting some radishes. So I've got, again, these are Wilkinson's ones, so they don't, we can't buy these anymore. Wilkinson's is shut, but I'm sure these seeds will be absolutely fine. I'm going to actually sow these in my polytunnel, and they're just going to fill a few of the gaps that I've got. They're quite quick to grow, so in the time that I'm waiting for my broccoli and things like that to finish before my tomatoes go in, I'm going to do a couple of repeat sowings of radishes. I've got this other one as well, which is very similar. This is quite an old packet, but I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. And once we get into April, I'll start doing the same thing outside. I'll start sowing them outside in little gaps just to get small little crops where I can of radishes. The last thing I'm going to be sowing in my greenhouse once it's all tidied up in the next couple of weeks are peas. So I've already got 2 lots of peas that I started in guttering, but I'm going to start a whole different varieties. The Shiraz pea, which is purple in colour, and I've got a bed that I specifically want to put these in. So I'm going to start these in quite a large tray, just open, and hopefully I'll be able to just transplant them straight from that tray into the bed that I want. when it comes down to it. But I'm going to start them in a couple of weeks in the greenhouse when I've got room out there, when it's nice and tidy out there. The last thing I wanted to cover is peppers. So this one I actually dropped this, and I just piled all the soil back into it, and 3 peppers or chilies have actually come up, and a little one there, so 4th one as well, but I don't know what they are. I know what they could be because I labelled them. So it could be Padron, Sweet Aster, Cayenne, and Tabasco, but I don't know which ones they are. I am going to pot them on, but they will be mystery ones because I don't know which variety exactly they are. And then I've got these ones which I do know what they are. So there's actually 1 or 2 of each that have come up. I've got California Wonder, Basket of Fire, Salad Festival, and Sweet Ingrid. They're starting to get their true leaves now. I will leave them a couple of weeks again, still just growing on my windowsill, the same one that these are going to be on, and I will just pot all of these on all together. I'm giving myself a couple of weeks because I do want to sort out the greenhouse. So hopefully by then these can all be potted on. And also I've got all of the peppers that I overwintered. So this is one of them that I just wanted to show you. This is the hot wax, and I overwintered this last year. This actually is from the year before, so this is the 2nd year that I overwintered this particular one, and you can see that from the stem. It's absolutely huge and rock solid there. But I'm going to be putting all of these into my greenhouse as well then, so it's about 2 weeks time. The middle of March is around when we have our last frost hit, so that's the time when I sort of go for and aim for my greenhouse to be ready for things to be potted on into. This is how I like to do it. So for me, it's much easier for me to just start them off small like this and then prick them out and pot them on when I've got room for it outside. I don't really have the room inside, and I do have a polytunnel at the allotment, but I don't get to go up there as often as I'd like. So if I knew I had seedlings and things like that up there, I wouldn't be able to get up there as much as I would like to water them and things like that. So that's why I do things like this. I literally do things in small seed trays and then I prick them out literally like this. So this is just a single version of what this will eventually look like, hopefully. I think these will probably take a couple of weeks just to get their leaves, and then we'll be moving on to the next exciting step. So I really hope that you enjoyed watching me today. It's been really fun to just sit down for an hour and sow some seeds, especially now that the sun is shining and we're getting into the spring. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you again soon.